A fifth-round rookie just did something that most NFL superstars spend their entire careers trying to pull off. Shedeur Sanders didn't just sign another endorsement deal. He crashed a luxury fashion brand's website, forced global companies to fight for his signature, and quietly flipped the power dynamic between rookies and the league. And the wild part, this all happened before he's even finished proving himself on the field. Think about that for a second. While most young quarterbacks are begging for opportunities, fighting for reps, and waiting on their first real paycheck, Shedeur is already moving like a CEO. An $80 million fashion partnership with a high-end brand sent shockwaves through the industry. The moment it was announced, traffic spiked so hard that the company's servers went down. That's not hype. That's demand. That's cultural pull. And it instantly raised one uncomfortable question across NFL front offices. How is a rookie this powerful already? But this story goes way deeper than one flashy deal. Behind the scenes, reports suggest Shedeur turned down a $60 million offer from a major sports drink brand because he didn't want a paycheck. He wanted ownership, not sponsorship money, not temporary cash, equity, a seat at the table. That's a mindset most veterans never reach, let alone a 22-year-old quarterback fresh into the league. And then there's Nike. The same company that carefully chooses who represents their brand allegedly structured Shedeur's contract to explode the moment he stepped onto an NFL field. When that trigger hit, the deal reportedly doubled. Add in massive jersey sales and revenue sharing, and suddenly you're looking at a rookie earning like an established superstar. Now here, where things get tense. Because while Shedeur is stacking global deals, building leverage, and expanding his influence beyond football, insiders say parts of the Browns' organization and media aren't exactly celebrating. They expected a developmental quarterback. What they got was a brand powerhouse who doesn't need permission to win off the field. And that's the real story. This isn't just about money. It's about control. It's about a new generation of players realizing their value early and refusing to play by old rules. And if Shedeur keeps moving like this, the league might be forced to adapt whether it's ready or not. Here, where everything shifted, when Shedeur Sanders and his brother Shiloh officially partnered with a luxury fashion brand, nobody expected what happened next. Within minutes of the announcement, the brand's website reportedly crashed, not slowed down, not lagging, completely overwhelmed by traffic. That's when executives realized this wasn't just another athlete endorsement. This was influence at scale. Luxury brands don't move like sports companies. They don't gamble on unproven names. They build around exclusivity. So when they handed Shedeur an $80 million deal and put him on a Paris runway, it sent a loud message. He wasn't being treated like a rookie quarterback. He was being positioned as a global icon. And the timing made it even crazier. While NFL analysts were still debating his stat lines and on-field development, Shedeur was already overseas doing high-end shoots, meeting creative directors, and building relationships that most players don't touch until retirement. That's a completely different lane. But that wasn't the whole story. Because fashion wasn't the only industry lining up. The real leverage came from something the league couldn't ignore: demand. Shedeur didn't just sell jerseys. He dominated the rookie market. Reports suggest he moved hundreds of thousands of units in his first season alone. That kind of volume turns athletes into assets. Brands don't see a quarterback anymore. They see reach, conversion, and loyalty. And that's when the power dynamic flipped. Instead of companies telling Shedeur what he was worth, he started setting the terms. Not just signing contracts, but negotiating ownership, long-term stakes, and revenue participation. That's not endorsement behavior. That's investor behavior. And once that switch happens, there's no going back. Because now Shedeur isn't chasing deals. Deals are chasing him. And the next move he made proved this wasn't luck. It was strategy. This is the part that shocked even veteran agents. While most rookies would sprint to sign the biggest guaranteed check in front of them, Reports suggest Shedeur Sanders did the opposite. Instead of locking in a massive beverage endorsement offer, he allegedly pushed back and asked for something far more dangerous to traditional contracts: equity. Think about that for a second. Not a one-time payout, not just yearly royalties, ownership-level positioning. That move alone separates short-term earners from long-term power players. Because when you take equity, you're no longer just being paid to promote a product. You're tied directly to its growth. Every sale, every expansion, every international push works in your favor. That's not how rookies usually think. That's how CEOs think. And it revealed something important about Shedeur's mindset. He isn't building for next season. He's building for the next decade. This decision sent quiet shockwaves through endorsement circles. Brands realized they weren't dealing with someone desperate for exposure or quick money. They were dealing with someone who understood leverage. Someone who knew his value wasn't just in touchdowns, but in attention, influence, and cultural reach. And here, where it gets even deeper. When athletes take early guaranteed money, they often lock themselves into fixed ceilings. The brand grows, the athlete stays capped. Shedeur flipped that equation. If the brand grows, he grows with it. That's compounding power. That strategy also explains why luxury companies are suddenly comfortable placing him front and center. They aren't just buying a face. They're partnering with a business mind that understands mutual growth. But that wasn't the biggest play. Because while everyone was focused on fashion headlines and beverage negotiations, Shedeur was quietly executing something even larger. A long-term partnership that changed how rookie endorsement deals work. And once that contract activated, the entire league started paying attention. Because this wasn't just about branding anymore. It was about ownership of the spotlight itself. And what happened next completely rewrote the rules. This is where the story stops being impressive and starts becoming historic. Before Shedeur Sanders even played a full NFL snap, he reportedly locked in a long-term partnership with Nike. Not a basic rookie endorsement, not a shoe deal buried in fine print. A real partnership built around performance triggers and revenue participation. And the moment he stepped onto an NFL field, everything changed. That activation clause kicked in. The value of the deal reportedly doubled overnight. Most players have to win awards, break records, or make multiple Pro Bowls before they ever see contracts structured like that. Shedeur triggered it by simply entering the league. That tells you how confident Nike already was in his market power. But here's the part that sent executives scrambling. Unlike standard athlete deals where brands keep the majority of merchandise profits, this agreement allegedly included revenue sharing tied directly to jersey sales. That means every time a fan buys his jersey, Shedeur doesn't just get visibility, he gets paid again. And the numbers tell the story. As a late-round rookie on a struggling team, he still moved more jerseys than players drafted far ahead of him. That's not hype, that's demand. That's proof of influence that doesn't depend on highlight reels or playoff runs. To Nike, that makes him more than a quarterback. It makes him a walking distribution engine. And here's what most fans don't realize. When a company like Nike structures deals this aggressively, it's because they're betting on long-term cultural relevance. They're not just selling football gear. They're positioning Shedeur as a lifestyle figure, someone whose brand extends beyond Sundays. That's why this deal matters more than the dollar amount. It signals that corporate giants now see rookie athletes differently, not as short-term promotional tools, but as long-term brand pillars. And while people online were debating his completion percentage, the real scoreboard was being updated behind closed doors. Because this wasn't just about apparel. It was about controlling narrative, market share, and influence. And while all of this was happening quietly, another massive moment was about to drop. one that didn't happen in a stadium. It happened in Paris. While fans were focused on depth charts and preseason debates, Shedeur Sanders was making moves on an entirely different stage. Paris, not for vacation, not for Fashion Week photos, for business. That's where reports say the $80 million AMIRI partnership was finalized. And this wasn't a standard wear our clothes and post on Instagram deal. This was positioning. This was visibility at the highest level of luxury culture. Runway access, editorial campaigns, global branding. The moment AMIRI announced the collaboration, their website traffic reportedly exploded. Servers struggled to keep up. That's not coincidence. That's proof of pull. Think about how rare this is. Luxury brands usually wait until athletes are champions, MVPs, household legends. Shedeur hadn't even finished his rookie season, and yet they treated him like a global ambassador. Why? Because to these brands, he isn't just a football player. He's access. Access to younger audiences. Access to American street culture. Access to a demographic they've tried and failed to authentically connect with for years. And Shedeur fits that bridge perfectly. He doesn't need manufactured image campaigns. He doesn't need scripted commercials. His following already moves with him. When he posts, people react. When he shows up, attention follows. That's the currency luxury brands crave. And this move sent a message straight to the sports world. He's not waiting to make it in the league before building wealth. He's building leverage before the league can define him. And here's what makes this even more strategic. Fashion partnerships don't expire like performance-based contracts. They scale, they compound, they grow with relevance. Which means while other rookies are praying for their second contract, Shedeur is stacking income streams that don't depend on box scores. But this Paris moment wasn't just about money. It was about positioning himself globally. Because once you step into European luxury markets, your brand isn't local anymore. It's international. And that shift opened the door to something even bigger. A negotiation that revealed just how differently Shedeur thinks about power. And it involved one of the biggest beverage companies on the planet. This is where Shedeur Sanders separated himself from every other rookie in the league. Because while most young players would sprint toward the first massive endorsement check they see, Shedeur did the exact opposite. Reports say Gatorade came to the table with a 3-year offer worth around $60 million. For most athletes, that's instant yes money, family-changing money, lifetime security money. But Shedeur didn't say yes. He didn't even negotiate the number. He changed the conversation. Instead of asking for a bigger check, he reportedly asked for ownership, equity, a real stake in the business, not just a logo on a jersey. That's a power move few veterans ever attempt, and almost no rookies even think about. Because there's a difference between getting paid and building wealth. A sponsorship ends, equity compounds. Shedeur wasn't chasing a short-term payday. He was thinking long-term leverage, passive income, generational positioning. That tells you everything about how his mindset operates. He doesn't see himself as a brand ambassador. He sees himself as a business partner. And that mentality sends a quiet message to every company approaching him. If you want access to his audience, his influence, and his cultural pull, you don't rent it. You invest in it. That approach completely flips the traditional athlete endorsement model on its head. It also explains why luxury brands and major corporations keep lining up. They aren't just buying attention. They're buying into momentum. And here's what makes this even more dangerous for the old-school NFL power structure. When a rookie doesn't depend on contracts alone, teams lose leverage. You can't pressure someone who already has financial independence. You can't intimidate someone who isn't desperate. And that reality is starting to make certain front offices uncomfortable. Because Shedeur isn't waiting to be established before acting like a franchise figure. He's already operating at that level. And the ripple effect of this strategy didn't stop with Gatorade. It unlocked something even bigger. Something tied directly to his jersey sales and one of the most powerful sports brands in the world. Now this is where the entire system started shaking. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't just sign a Nike deal. He rewrote what a rookie deal is allowed to look like. Before he ever took an official NFL snap, Nike locked him into a massive long-term partnership. And insiders say the original contract was already sitting north of 9 figures. That alone would have been historic. But the real twist was hidden in the fine print. There was reportedly a performance activation clause. The moment Shedeur stepped onto an NFL field, the value of that deal doubled. Instantly. No renegotiation, no extensions, just automatic leverage kicking in. That's not marketing. That's strategic positioning. And then came the part that stunned even veteran players. Nike didn't just pay him to wear the swoosh. They gave him a direct percentage of jersey sales. Not royalties after expenses. Not a small bonus. A real cut of every unit sold. And remember this. Shedeur moved over 375,000 jerseys in a single season as a fifth-round rookie. That's unheard of. That's superstar volume without superstar draft capital. When you run the numbers, that means tens of millions in direct revenue tied to his name alone. No agent middlemen. No team filtering. Just brand power converting into cash flow. That's when Nike stopped treating him like an athlete endorsement and started treating him like a business asset. A partner, someone who doesn't just represent the brand, but actively drives sales at scale. And this is why other rookies are quietly watching from the sidelines. Because Shedeur just showed it's possible to monetize influence before the league assigns you status. You don't have to wait for Pro Bowls. You don't have to wait for contract extensions. If the audience is already there, the leverage is already real. And once that door opened, it changed how every other brand started approaching him. Because if Nike is willing to bet this big, everyone else wants in. But what really sent shockwaves through the NFL wasn't the money. It was what this meant for control. Because when a rookie controls his own revenue streams, the balance of power shifts. And not everyone in Cleveland was happy watching that happen. And this is where the story stops being about endorsements and starts becoming about legacy. Because what Shedeur Sanders is building right now isn't just a lucky run of brand deals. It's a blueprint, a roadmap for the next generation of athletes who refuse to wait for permission before taking control of their future. At just 22 years old, Shedeur has already positioned himself as more than a quarterback. He's a walking media brand, a fashion figure, a cultural connector, a business operator with equity leverage instead of short-term payouts. While most rookies are focused on surviving their first contract cycle, Shedeur is already stacking long-term assets that grow whether he throws a touchdown or not. That's the part that makes the league uncomfortable. Because once players realize they don't need to depend solely on team contracts, the entire power structure starts shifting. Teams lose leverage. Brands start negotiating directly with influence, and athletes begin operating like CEOs instead of employees. And here's the wild part. This is still the early phase. If Shedeur continues growing his audience, expanding partnerships, and turning visibility into ownership stakes, billionaire status isn't some fantasy headline. It becomes math, compounding revenue streams, equity appreciation, long-term brand partnerships that scale with popularity, the type of financial engine most athletes don't build until retirement, if ever. Now pair that with on-field success. If he wins games, earns playoff moments, and becomes the face of a franchise, this entire machine multiplies. Jersey sales rise, sponsorship values jump, media exposure explodes, and suddenly what looked bold today becomes the new standard tomorrow. This is why Cleveland's response matters. Because franchises don't just draft quarterbacks anymore. They inherit brands, audiences, business ecosystems, and teams that understand that will benefit. Teams that resist it will get left behind. Shedeur Sanders isn't asking the league to change. He's forcing it to adapt. And 5 years from now, when young rookies start negotiating equity instead of signing bonus checks, when athletes build empires before they build stat lines, people will look back at this moment and realize something important. This wasn't hype. This was the beginning of a new era. And whether the NFL likes it or not, Shedeur Sanders is already playing chess while everyone else is still counting yards.